we're going to get into pegging a little bit, and we might get through pegging in 2 more classes, but tonight we'll get started on basic pegging. There's a lot to it, and you have the opportunity to peg every hand. You only get a crib every other one. So if you recognize the pegging potential of your cards, and you play them accordingly, and you get good at it, you can score between 26 and 32 points per game pegging. If you get to the point where you can do that, your opponent can have the better cards. You'll win a high percentage of your games, even with smaller hands and not getting the benefit of the cut as often as your opponent. And that's why the pegging is so important. The discarding is important too. Between the pegging and the discarding, they make a huge difference in your game prospects, winning averages, batting averages. I've got to tell you that at all levels of tournament play, I see a lot of runs missed. Sometimes 2 in a row. Sometimes a person will drop a card down that would make a run of 4. They don't take that, and they get a go, and they drop the next one, which would make a run of 5. They missed 9 pegs, took 1. And it's too frequent. It's big. It's going to cost you a lot of games. Missing that kind of pegging opportunity is going to cost a lot of games. So I've done 2 things here. This first example, the cards are played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. Now, those first runs there are all pretty obvious, aren't they? Whoever played the 3 should take a run of 3. Who played the 4 ought to have a run of 4. Who played the 5 ought to have a run of 5. Who played the 6 ought to have a run of 6. Who played the 7 ought to have a run of 7. So often. See, that last card is the same as the first one? Exactly. Cards don't have to be in sequence, they just have to be there. And so, when you see a long string of cards like that, and they're all different except the first one and the last one, it ought to ring a bell that if the last card played in a string of cards is the same as the first card played, there's another run of 7. And that's very often, even though all of those along the way were pretty obvious. Now, the rules say that you have to wait a reasonable time. Like, that's a tough rule, isn't it? I mean, do you say, I mean, they play the 3 and they don't take 3. I wonder.
I play my 4.
What is a reasonable time? 15 seconds? This watch has a second hand on it, so I could do this. But it's really pretty subjective, and unfortunately they're moving more and more to rules which are subjective. See? Anyway, at some point you should take your run of 4. If they didn't take 1 of 3, you still got 1 of 4. Now they got a chance to take 1 of 5, so... Do you drink coffee? Could I get you a cup? At least that would be reasonable. If I come back and they hadn't moved their pegs, probably I'm okay to go ahead and take my run now. So it's really kind of tough to call. But watch for those, because you'd be amazed how often runs get missed. Now, it's also possible for there to be 7 cards in a row and never be a run of 3, a run of 4, a run of 5, a run of 6, never a run until the last card. And this bottom example shows that. We got a 1, 3, 4, 6, 2, 7 with a 5 on the end. Go. Well, a goal's worth one, ain't it? I take my one. No, but I just missed. Oh,
7 pegs.
see, we got a whole long string here. 6, 7 cards in a row, none of them in sequence. No run of 3, no run of 4, no run of 5, no run of 6, but the last card makes a run of 7. Those kind happen all the time. Get them, score them, make a big difference in your game. Any questions about that? Looking for runs like that? Just remember, don't fall into this trap. Some people get locked into this thing. Well, they weren't in sequence. Doesn't make any difference. If the cards are there, it's a run. They don't make any difference which order they're played. If the cards are either there or they're not. And so if you can train your mind not to think in terms of sequence, but in terms of the group of cards that would constitute a run, regardless of the order of play, you might pick some of them up you'd otherwise miss.